Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. I'll begin by acknowledging we are in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Neil Hardin. I'm chairing today's panel. With me is Terry Linklater to my left and Lynn Nisbet to my far left. The assessor today is Stephen Lobenstein, and the recording secretary is Kelsey Harrison. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested are described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that the applicants or assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. We advise that the comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Thank you. Can you swear me in, Kelsey, please?
Can you please state your name?
Stephen Lobenstein.
And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you please state your name?
Marcelo Navarro.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got an aggressive agenda today, so let's move along. The first item is 1235 Sargent Avenue. And we begin.
The roll number is 13001870000. 1235 Sargent Avenue. The assessed value is $453,000. The actual year and effective year built are 1960. The wall height is 18 feet, and the construction class is masonry. The zoning, it shares two zonings, which is interesting. It's M2 and Zone M3. I'll get to that in a moment. The land area is 23,806 square feet. The gross floor and the leasable area are 4,574 square feet, and the land to plan is 5.20. So if we'll just turn to page 8 quickly, we can see the location of the property on the map. It's on Sargent Avenue. It's near Century and Ellis Avenue. It's in the St. James area. So if you look further down to the picture below, you'll see that how the building's laid out, with the buildings at the back of the property, I guess, if you consider Sargent the front, and there's a bunch of space in front of it where they park trucks. But also if you look behind the building, there's another building there. These two buildings are actually touching, and the building behind it is zoned M3, so I believe that's why we have the split zoning on it. But for the sake of this, it's the majority of it's M2. It's being looked at as an M2 zoning, so I don't really feel that has any variance on what's happening here today. So just turning to page 9, you can get another look at the property. Again, for this area, for the St. James area, the land to building ratio of 5.20 is actually quite high. You don't see that a lot in this area. I guess for basically most of the properties like postage stamps, they're quite small in the sense that the building takes up most of the property and there's not a lot of room. So now we have an idea what the building looks like and where it is. We can turn to page 3. These are the rent comparables. So the rent comparables are on King Edward, Bradford, Border, and Little Run and King Edward. They range in rent from $5.81 all the way up to $9.16. The effective years built range from 1960 up to 1972. The average wall heights range from 13 to 18 feet, and the leased areas range from 4,666 square feet all the way up to 6,000 square feet. And the lease terms range from 2012 up to 2017, and the terms range from 1 year to 10 years. So just to make note, all these are in a similar location as the subject property. In terms of land to building ratio, they're actually all a bit lower. 1550 King Edward is 3.33. 545 King Edward is 1.51. 930 Bradford is probably the closest to the subject property. That's at 4.46. 1365 Borders at 1.11, and 1368 Borders at 3.41. It's also important to note that these are all storage warehouse properties, very similar to the subject property. The St. James area has a lot of flex warehouses as well, so to distinguish the two, these are usually the storage warehouses are predominantly like 1 or 2 tenant, single tenant, not usually multi-tenant buildings, where there's a lot of flex warehouses in this area that have multiple tenants, so you'll see a big variance in this area with that. Turning to page 4, so we're using $6.27 a square foot. We're applying that to the leasable area of 4,574 square feet for a potential rent of $28,679,000. So we're using a 4% vacancy here, and again the 2% expenses. On page, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, on page 13 is our non-recoverable expense sampling, which shows that the 2% is adequate for the market. And our overall capitalization rate is 5.8. So this is a lower capitalization rate than probably what we're used to seeing with industrial properties. And the reason for this is partially the location. St. James is a very sought-after location in the area. You can see that with maybe the 4% vacancy that we have on it. But also due to the low square footage of this property at 4,574 square feet, there's not a lot of risk to this property for an investor. It's smaller, it doesn't carry, you won't need a lot of money down per se, so we believe that this does not carry as much risk when you have that size of a square footage for a property. So if you're looking at the page 6, our capitalization rate study, so this falls almost on our low end. This is the second one down, states industrial, it's at 5.8, I think I said, so this is at our lowest is 5.5. And then turning to page 10, we have the mailer. This is an owner-occupied property. That's my presentation. So I feel that the value of $453,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, do you have any questions, myself?
Everything is model generated?
It is correct.
Okay. And in terms of the location, do you feel that this is a good location?
Yes, directly on Sargent Avenue. I feel that's a fairly busy street. I feel it's a good location for this property. St. James in general, I feel for industrial properties is quite good.
The property is built in 1960. Do you think that a capitalization rate of 5.0 is appropriate for property for this age?
Yeah, I think, especially when you're looking at the area, a lot of these buildings are built between 1950s, 60s, 70s, a few into the 80s. I feel that that's what the market's showing in this area, and especially with the size of it, I feel that's somewhat accurate.
So in terms of your range for industrial, what would you categorize this as according to the rates that you put in here, or the city has put in here? Do you have single tenant A, single?
I think we just have industrial B at 5.5. I think we've shown we put in all of our rates in
So
here.
the range is 5.5 to 9.80. 20th percentile is 6.34, 80th percentile is 7.80. You've also noted here that CBRE is saying 6.5 to 7.25. Do you put much weight on that?
On the other the outside market sources here that we
Yes.
have decided. So these are calculated a little differently than how ours are. They're looking for newer properties, larger square footages, covenant strength. That's not these properties that we're looking at. So for something typical like this, I probably wouldn't put much weight on the outside sources.
Okay. So the better properties, the larger properties that investors are looking at are ranging between 6.5 to 7.25. Cushman & Wakefield says 7 to 7.75. Would you think that this is an investment grade property?
Well, I think that's the point. They have a very defined category of how they look at their properties. They're not looking at these properties, so they don't know what these cap rates are. And that's kind of the point. So they're just looking for a specific type of property here in their studies, and it's not these. So,
And do you have any sales where you have actually calculated any capitalization rates of properties similar to this?
the only thing that we supply is our capitalization rate study here, and there is one at 5.9% on Park Lane. So that's 20,000 square feet. That is quite a bit larger than the property. We do have one on the lot that's 5,000 square feet at 8%. So it's in a different area, though. Both of these are in different areas. So those are the only examples we have. They're not used as comparables for this type of property. They're just examples of what's in the market.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, Carrie, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you had said that this is a St. James property. And what leads you to believe that it's in St. James?
This is sort of the St. James area. That's off Sargent. So if you look at the property here, you sort of see St. James Street is just 2 streets over. You got Empress and St. James.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the St. James area.
Okay. St. James is actually the cutoff for St. James. St. James Street.
Okay, well, I think when we're looking at it in terms of the industrial market, we're looking at this as like the St. James. If you see, it says right here in the St. James industrial area. So.
Technically. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
And so for your cap rate, you've got your, on page 12, so the industrial properties you've got listed at the bottom, you're saying these are not comparables?
They're not. These are just examples of what's in the market. We stated that at the top here. They're just showing the accuracy of our model because our cap rates are model driven. So this is just showing these are actual, like, in the market cap rates. So these are just examples of what's out there to show, basically just to support our model.
Okay. But you've got nothing that's in 1960.
No, well, we got 1979, 1974. Yeah, nothing in 1960.
Okay. Did you have a chance to inspect the property?
I did not.
Do you know the last time it was inspected?
I actually don't know.
Okay. So you can't speak to the condition?
No, this is an owner-occupied property, so I don't believe anything's really changed in the last little while. Nothing's come up in terms of permits, so we haven't had a chance to inspect it.
All right, that's all my questions, thank you.
Okay, Lynn, any questions?
Yeah, I do. You've suggested that St. James industrial area is a desirable.
I believe it is for industrial properties, not just because it's an industrial area, but because it's also a retail and commercial area, so it gets a lot of traffic. So
You've given it a 4% vacancy. Is that model for this
That would be a
area,
model.
despite it being quite a desirable? This is a higher vacancy rate than I've seen for some other areas of the city.
sure, I think Fort Garry probably has the lowest area, but has the lowest vacancy because it's a very sought after area. But St. James at 4% is quite low. I feel.
Okay. You made note of the land plan 5.2, especially related to the comparables. Only one is even close to that at 4.46. So is that land to plan a desirable feature of this property, or is it not?
I think in general, everybody believes for industrial properties that the more land area you have, the better. But I think St. James is an interesting test case where there's not a lot of land area for industrial properties. They're actually quite small, and this is actually quite rare. And I think as we go through today, we're going to see that they're all quite low for the most part. So, is it desirable for industrial properties? To a point, I guess. But in this area, is it as essential? I don't think so.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to get at, is it a positive? Is it a selling feature? Like I'm kind of trying to understand.
Sure, I think.
Yeah, semi will fit in there and can turn
Yeah.
around. But
I think, well, in this case, there's no doubt that
Yeah.
semi can fit in there and turn around. Yeah, for that instance, yeah, it's a positive. But I think what we see with a lot of basically buildings in St. James, that people want to build them out. It's not, so they do a lot of their processing, manufacturing, storage, distribution, all within inside the building. So the building's the important part. It's not so much the land, where when you get into your heavy manufacturing, so your M3 classes, you see a lot more land to building ratio because they need it for their materials, they need it for their processing, they need to store stuff outside. So that's when we get into the higher land to building ratios that are probably very important as compared to in this area.
so I'm basically hearing from you it's
For-
it's okay, but it's not detrimental and it's
For
not a
M2
strong
and
positive.
M1, yeah, I would say in St. James, there's just not a lot of land. So it's just the way it is.
Could it be used by somebody else quite easily if this business were to close?
Yeah, I think that's the other interesting thing about St. James is that because it's such a mixed use area with retail, commercial, even airport to some extent further to the west of it, that it would probably be used very quickly by. There's so many different types of industries that are in St. James, so I believe that it could be used very quickly. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have no questions, so you can proceed, Richard.
If you look at page 2 of my brief, you can see a picture of the outside of the property. And then on page 3, you can see an overhead of the property also. So again, the property, again, the property is located at 1235 Sargent. One thing that I would ask you to look at on page 2, and then also flip to page 3 at the same time, is that I wouldn't feel that this is actually a property that any semi-trailer can actually drive into easily. So it's going to have to go in either forward or backwards. Forward, going in forward through that entrance there, a large semi-trailer is going to have a difficult time turning around in there. It's going to take a very skilled driver to turn a large truck in there. So a large semi-trailer would actually have to back into this property. And as you can see, this is a one-story building. There is no loading dock there, meaning a raised loading dock that's built for semi-trailer access. There is an overhead door there in the middle that you can see. So this is built for a much smaller type of delivery vehicle. Also in terms of its location, next to it you can see some railroad tracks there. Now some people would view that as not being an issue. Some people may view it as being less desirable, having railroad tracks beside your business. I don't know if these are spur lines, but I've traveled down St. James or Sargent many a times and actually seen trains here. So what I would say is that this location, in my opinion, is not as good as others in the area. Now we've used $575 rent on this for 4,574 square feet. The assessor has gone with, I believe, 627. We have a range of comparables there, different types of properties in the area, different sizes, but what we're looking at is what a tenant is paying in this area for a similar space. In terms of vacancy, we've gone with similar vacancy as the assessment department, 4% shortfall, 375. We continue to use our 7% non-recovered expenses. And instead of a 5.8 capitalization rate, I've gone with a 7.25. I think the 7.25, again, is reflective of the type of property it is, the age built, and the location. So we're asking for a requested assessment of $314,000. My presentation.
Any questions?
Just a few. In your, I know you didn't present this, but you handed it out, just your capitalization rate study.
Yeah.
Just on page 1, you state that the cap rate is based on market behavior and adjusted for a site's specific characteristics. Examples are location and age. Do you guys adjust for size by chance?
I think those are the general adjustments that we make. No.
So you wouldn't adjust down for something that's a very small square footage?
Well, I would say that as the building becomes smaller and smaller, it becomes less useful. So at some point, the utility is gone there, and most of the value of the property is actually in the land. And I would say that probably based on the age of this property, the type of building it is, I mean, it's useful for the tenant or the owner because it is owner occupied. But beyond that, I don't see much value to this property beyond the land value. Certainly we're providing an estimate based on the building. We're applying a market rent to it, some vacancy, shortfall, all of those characteristics that we would normally apply on an income producing property. However, in terms of the capitalization rate, it's taking into account that this is a small building. It's an older building. In terms of its location, I disagree with you in terms of it being that great. I would say that if you're maybe in a little bit different area around here, you may have a better location, but I don't think this is a great location.
So you spoke about the utility of it and saying that it's basically just good for the owner, but yet you've supplied over 17 rents of similar size and age properties. Could these tenants not also use that type of building?
And that was our objective in trying to supply the rents here. So we're trying to see exactly what a potential tenant in this area is renting for in terms of a similar space, and that is why it's reflected at a lower rate than what yours is.
And this is a single tenanted building?
I don't think that really matters. I think we're looking at the general space of it.
I
get what you mean.
It's all your rents are they're all multi-tenanted buildings?
Yeah. Again, we're looking at the space itself. What is somebody paying for a similar size space?
Okay, those are all my questions.
Yeah, questions, Karen?
Yeah, did you have a chance to inspect the property?
Only drive by it.
Okay. Did you have the opportunity to speak to the owner
Regarding
the condition of the building?
No. You can get a pretty good sense of the building from the outside.
Okay. And it's average?
I would say it's average.
Okay. That's all my questions, thank you.
I do, just on the comparables. So in your table on page 7, you indicate that the average rent is $5.97 and the median rent is $6, yet you've chosen to go below both of those numbers with $5.75.
Yes. I would say that we typically don't go with an average. We're certainly looking at different aspects. We're looking at land to building ratio. In this case, there's not much in terms of comparables to this property. The zoning, location, age of the building, wall heights, all of those factors kind of come into it when we're choosing the rent itself. So I wouldn't look at just the average and the median. Those are just...
Okay, I looked at it another way too. I think there's 17 here. 7 are below $6 and 10 are $6 and over.
Yeah.
So that's another way of looking
Yeah.
at it as well.
Yeah.
Just, I guess that's not really a question, it's more of an observation. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
But if you're looking at it from the perspective of a chart, going from lowest to highest,
Right.
and thinking that the middle ground is where it should be, that's
Yeah.
not necessarily, because there's other factors that come into it. I mean, when I mentioned the location of the tracks beside, that
Right.
also would have a bearing even on the rent, because some tenants may not see that as favorable.
No, for sure. I understand that. Okay, and your 7.25 cap.
It's a 1960 building. I would say that that's probably the biggest hurdle I had in terms of coming up with a lower cap rate on this.
Age being the primary consideration.
Right. Age and location. So while it is in a relatively good industrial area, I'm not saying the assessor's wrong with that. His observation is correct. I'm saying this particular situation is maybe just a little bit different. Simply because the building is that old, and again, you're looking at the location, those tracks may present a barrier for some tenants and some investors.
Okay. And all your comparables are kind of within the same age range.
I would say, yeah.
It was commented tenancy type multi-tenant versus single tenant. Can you tell me why that's important?
The argument has been brought forward by us and the assessors at different points that economies of scale produce, in some cases, a different rent based on whether you have multiple tenancies and a single tenant. If you have a single tenant, I guess the norm would be that you would have a lower rent as opposed to multiple tenancies where you would have higher rents because you can split up those areas and charge more for each one simply based on the smaller sizes. But I would say that what we're looking at here is simply the question of what's a property around the size of our subject, 1904.
Okay. One last question about your comparables, the zoning. Some of these are M2, some are M1.
Yeah.
Is it M2 more desirable than an M1 zoning?
I would say that as you get larger in terms of the zoning in the M category, M1, M2, M3, the more diversity that you have. And you can just have larger properties and more intensive uses in terms of what you can put in there. So an M3 I don't think would be appropriate for this area to begin with, simply because I think it's more heavy manufacturing.
Right, yeah.
But M2 and M1, there's not that much of a difference between M2 and M1, except when it comes to maybe density. So M2 would, in my opinion, I don't know if the assessor thinks so, it may be more desirable than M1.
M2 maybe, okay. Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask you, in terms of being a single tenant, is that, you touched on it, but does that present more risk because you're either going to be 100% occupied or 100% vacant?
Absolutely. Anytime you have a single tenancy, there's always more risk associated with it.
Okay. That's my question. Let me just finish deciphering. You? It's hard to chair and figure at the same time. 29 Allendine Road.
The roll number is 07022882000, 29 Allendine Road. The assessed value is $329,000. The effective year built is 1940. The wall height's 21 feet, and the construction class is a mix between wood and steel frame walls, and the zoning is N2. The land area is 45,518 square feet. We have a leasable and gross floor area of 9,000 square feet for a land to plan of 5.06. So let's just get a look at this property here. If we turn to page 8, you can see where it's located. It's near the airport, as shown further down by the airplanes that are in the picture. So this is owned by Standard Aero. It is my understanding that they are just using this as cold storage. This building has no water or no heat in it. And so it does have a larger land to building ratio, but in this case, it seems to have a road that passes through here that's used for traffic. So in terms of being able to store product on there or use it in any way, it looks like it's the land to plan probably isn't a big factor here for this property. You just get an idea of what it looks like on page 9 as well, and also on page 10. So in terms of looking for properties that have no heat or water, that rent out is fairly difficult. I would say there's not a lot. So what I did was I looked for basically buildings that are a little older, maybe areas that aren't as desirable as the airport area. So my rent comparables on page 3 were on White Avenue, Stapleton Avenue, that's just off Marin, Powell's somewhat near the subject property, and then we're also on Isabel as well, which is more in the Logan area, and White as well is kind of in the Logan area. So we're looking at rents that range from $3.19 up to $3.72 a square foot. The effective year of build is 1925 for a low and 1965 for a high. The wall heights range from 11 to 15 feet, and the leased areas range from almost 5,000 up to 11,300. And the lease starts range from 2013 to 2018 and range from 1 year to 5 years. So looking at this property, we've given it a $3.23 rent. This is on page 4. Applying to the leasable area of 9,000 square feet, we have $29,070 for potential rent. We're applying 4% vacancy or 2% expenses, and the cap rate's been increased here to 7.90 due to the fact of its age and the fact that it's not heated or has water. So carrying on, we can see that this property is on the higher side for our percentile. So this obviously is between our low and our high at 7.9. So this is a owner-occupied property by Standard Aero. So the mailer on the back, it's basically just on page 11 is just the property taxes, wages, and benefits that they're showing. All their mailers come with their other properties for Standard Aero, all their expenses. So we feel that the value of $329,000 is fair and equitable for this property and should be confirmed.
Okay, questions?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, Carrie, any questions?
Yeah, did you have a chance to inspect the property?
I have no inspections.
Do you know specifically what they keep inside?
I have no idea.
Okay. But it is confirmed there's no heat or water?
It's been confirmed in other assessments, yes.
Okay. Sorry, it's going to go to your So you've got a cap rate on this 80-year-old building of 7.9. What would bring it higher? What would bring it to 9.80?
What would bring it to a 9.80? Well, these are usually like the worst buildings. They almost can't even be rented out. There'd be holes in the ceiling or in the walls. There's a number of factors in terms of that. Like these are the worst of the worst for this building. Although it has no heat and no water, my impression is that this is not the worst building in the city. So.
Okay. But that's your impression because you didn't inspect it.
I did not inspect it. No.
Okay. Do you know the last time it was inspected?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, the question I have, no heat, no water, and the location, right, certainly very near the airport.
Yeah, it's almost on the airport. Yeah.
Almost on. Is this leased, on leased land from?
No, I don't believe this is leased land, actually.
Okay. But, can I ask, would the potential buyers be very restricted because of its location? If you weren't Standard Arrow, would anybody else be looking to?
Yeah, it's a little landlocked, this property, as you can kind of see on page 9 there. Kind of says at a dead end of a road here with the airport in front of it. There's a road passing through it. The owner, I guess it's Standard Arrow, so I guess they allow that. If an owner was to purchase that, they probably wouldn't allow that. So.
Yeah. Okay, so the fact that it would be landlocked would be a major restriction to a normal owner?
Yeah, it's
A
not
different
on,
owner?
it is landlocked. I guess it's not right on a main street, but they can exit out of I guess is that Ferry Road there. So yeah.
Okay. All right, those are my questions, so you can proceed, John.
I'm actually just going to ask you to flip to the chart on page 9.
Of the presentation?
I'm revising my evaluation here. So I'm going to accept the assessor's rent of $3.23. The reason is that the assessor explained it quite well that finding rent for a space like this is next to impossible because there are not many buildings like this. So I'm willing to accept that rent. 4% vacancy. That gives us again the same vacancy amount, so it was $11.74. Gives us an effective market rent of $28,167. We, of course, use the 7% non-recoverables. That gives us a non-recoverable expense allowance of $19.72. Shortfall rate, $13.63. Gives us a net operating income of $24,832. In terms of the capitalization rate, that's that and the non-recoverable is the only place that we're really disagreeing. In our capitalization rate studies, if you turn to page 13, where we've summarized our findings. So we have a category here for non-investment grade properties that starts at 8%, and we've jumped it up to about 8.5%. Again, this is not a great example of an investment grade property. Hence the reason that we put a high vacant or capitalization rate on it. Numerous factors that you can also see just from the pictures and looking at it. In terms of access, it's got poor access. a good portion of the site itself is taken up by a right-of-way that grants access to the lot beside it. So when you're looking at the available land, there's not much there. The building itself, I mean, the building, it's a cold storage building, so there's not much that we can say about that. It probably doesn't have much value. The value is strictly in the land. However, we've taken the exercise of actually going through this as an income-producing property. In that sense, I think it's deserving of a slightly higher capitalization rate. So we put a capitalization rate of 8.50 on it.
And what's your?
End value?
Yeah.
Okay. The end value is $292,141.
So around
$292.
Okay, questions?
I have no questions on this property.
Okay, Karen?
No questions.
Lynn?
No questions.
And I have no questions, so thank you for your presentations. 1260 border. You can proceed.
Okay, so the roll number is 070100190000, 1260 border. The assessed value is $998,000. We have an effective year built of 1989, a wall height of 23 feet. It's metal frame, and the zoning is M2. The land area is 18,746 square feet. We have a gross floor area of 10,320 square feet and a leasable area of 9,920 square feet. The discrepancy between the gross floor and the leasable area is a mezzanine space that's not included in the leasable area for 1,176 square feet. The land to plan is 1.89. So there was, turning to page 2, there was a sale on this property in August 7th, 2014 for $800,000. The sale was investigated by the city, and it is arm's length, and it was a bona fide sale. So turning to page 8, we'll take a look at where it's located. It's located on Border Avenue between Century and St. James. Lower on page 8, you can see the street view of the property. And on page 9, you get an overhead and a side view of the property. So what's interesting about this property here is that if you look at the property beside it, the cars behind the property have to access 1258 through 1260 border. So essentially, the people in 1258 are using the property of 1260 to access the space behind it. This was brought to our attention last cycle. So an adjustment had been made for this cycle. So if you turn to page 4, you can see we have a negative adjustment under the land value for $52,000. So we were taking that off the capitalized value due to the fact that this property has some restrictions on it because of the property beside it. So, anyways, moving forward, we do have some comparable rents on page 3. They range in price from $7.15 all the way up to $8.95. The effective years built range from 1964 all the way up to 1991, and the average wall heights range from 12 feet all the way up to 26 feet. The leased areas range from 7,156 square feet of over 10,000, and the lease terms range from 1 year all the way up to 15 years. Again, these comparables are within the area. They're on St. James, King Edward, Sargent, Border, and another one on St. James, all within fairly close proximity to the property. In terms of land to building ratios, all these comparables are a little bit higher than the actual subject. The bottom one, 1608, is at 2.03. 1258 Borders at 211. 1695 Sargent at 2.74. King Edward, 305 King Edward's at 2.91, and actually 1500 St. James is quite high at 9.79. But it has a lot of outbuildings, and as it's a propane center, so anyways. So moving forward now onto our income. So we're using $7.70 a square foot applied to the leasable area for a potential rent of $76,384. We're using a 4% vacancy or 2% expenses and a 6.7% overall capitalization rate. Again, we've used that. We've taken out some value with our negative adjustment to get an estimated value of $998,000. So looking at the mailer on page 10, so this is a tenanted building. They are paying a rent in this building, so when you look at the rent, they're paying $8.06 a square, or $8.60 a square foot for the property. $8.60 a square foot.
Okay, you said 8.06.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, $8.60 a square foot for the property. So, that being said, we feel the value of $998,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed.
Okay, questions, Michelle?
Yeah. Did you check to see whether this was actually an arm's length lease?
We did. It was checked by an arm's length lease. Sorry, I thought you were talking sale. It's my understanding that it is marked as a net lease on the mailer. So, aside from that, no, I had not checked into it any further.
Okay. And the lease or the sale occurred in 2014. It's just 4 years before the reference date.
Yeah.
The land value subtraction. Can you explain this to me once more?
Yeah, this came about last cycle. This was pointed out to us that the access to the building beside the property needed to run through this property.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an issue, a contentious issue at that time. So since then we've gone back and we've looked at it, and they put an adjustment on it for restriction for access to allow, I guess, for the cars to pass through. So,
do you apply that on the other building as well?
On the other building, I have no idea.
The one that actually has the issue with the park with access?
Well, I don't think, I have no idea if they applied to that one, but it's being applied to this one because it's impeding on their property.
Okay, and how is that rate determined? I mean, I'm not.
So basically,
because I didn't adjust it for that.
No, I know,
and I didn't feel a need to, but
yeah.
You've done it. But
I was surprised when I saw it myself. This is the first time I've seen that. So what I deduce from what happened or how they came up with that, they basically measured out the area where the cars have to pass through, and divided it by the total area of the land to come up with the percentage for the restriction.
Wouldn't an easier way have been just to adjust the capitalization rate?
Possibly.
Okay.
But I think because of the issues that happened, or the contentious issues that happened last cycle with this one, that we decided to go with this.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, Lynn, any questions?
I have any questions?
Carrie?
Uh-oh.
No. Did Did you have a chance to inspect this
No,
property?
I haven't.
So I'll just ask the blanket question, if you inspected any of the properties?
No, I have not
Okay,
inspected.
perfect, then I don't need to ask again.
Actually, one has been inspected because I sent somebody out to inspect it. So,
Okay, don't tell me which one.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've got a net lease in place for $8.60. And as far as you know, there's no connection between Pro Forma Engineering and the numbered company?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. You can proceed, Michelle.
Okay. On page 2, you can see a picture of this property. I have not inspected this property. I did do a drive-by, but no interior inspection. I'll just ask you to flip to page 7. Again, here we've tried to do a similar exercise, and we're just looking at the available space and what someone is paying for a similar space. So we came up with an average of $5.46, median of $5.50. We applied rent of $6.50 on it. Vacancy of 4%, shortfall of $375. And on the market rent, on page 7, you can read commentary there. So the potential rent that the city has applied is $679. The actual, I should say, lease in place is non-arm's length. One of the owners occupies, and therefore this is not considered at market. Previous rent paid was $645. Vacating in 2014, we adjusted that upwards to $650. On page 9, again, we've come up with a net operating income of $61,370 and applied a 7% capitalization rate to this. We come up with a value of $876,714. I am open for questions.
Question?
The actual year built is 1989 in this building. Did you find any rents that were around that age for this property? All your effective ages?
Yeah, I would agree with you that they are slightly older. In fact, the only one in the entire 2 groupings is your index 2, which is 1991.
So the gross floor area is 10,000 square feet for this property. You have a few on here such as Barry and Century, King Edward, Bannister, they all range between 650,000 square feet for Barry to 40,000 Bannister. King Edward is 80,000. Do you think these are good comparable properties for the subject?
Sorry, where are you looking?
Just at your comparables here, these properties themselves all have very large square footages, gross floors, because they're all multi-tenanted.
Oh, yes, and in terms of overall size. But again, what I said is that we're just going through the exercise of looking for similar rents of similar lease sizes. No, you're right. There is. These aren't single occupant buildings, but we were looking to see what somebody's paying for a similar space.
I think those are.
However, that leads us into the conversation about the previous lease, which was in place at $645 in 2014. We increased that slightly. However, we're comfortable with that.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
Okay. Lynn, any questions?
Yeah, a couple. Your square footage is different. It's not a large difference, but nonetheless it is different. I think the assessor has 9920 and
We had slightly more on record,
288, yeah.
so we went with ours.
Yeah. Okay.
We feel that it's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes we have a difference of
Yep.
opinion on sizes.
That's fine. Sorry, you talked about previous lease in place.
Yeah. So the current lease, we feel is not arm's length. There is a relationship there between the tenant or the tenant that is noted in the lease and the actual owner. So in our opinion, that's not an arm's length lease.
What is the relationship?
One of the owners occupies.
One of the owners.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is what I need.
Yeah.
A current owner
Yeah.
occupies.
And so for that reason, we don't feel it's an arm's length lease.
And the previous, you said the previous tenant paid,
$645.
and was that an arm's length lease?
That was an arm's length lease, yes.
And when was that?
They vacated in 2014.
So 4 years before
4
the
years
reference.
before, yeah, the reference date.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, Harry, any questions?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just looking, the assessors comparables here. They have the property that's right next door, 1258 Border Street, with an $8.24 lease. Wouldn't that be probably the best comparable? That's on the city's page 3.
And is it the building to the left or the right? Stephen?
Oh, it says, sorry, on my page 9 it says 1258. So I guess that would be facing, instead of west, be to the left? Or if you're facing towards the building, it'd be to the left.
Yeah, that'd be the south.
Would it be the smaller building that looks like on my picture?
Oh, your picture, sorry. Yeah, it would be, I guess the smaller, I guess it would be this building here.
Yeah, here's, it has a rent of $824. It's got an age of 1964, a wall height of 13, showing every way possible it's inferior, and they're paying a higher rent. So in that sense, the assessor's rent could be right.
Okay. All right, I have no more questions then. Let me just get a glass of water and we'll continue. Sure. My voice seems to be getting a bit scratchy. Okay. All right, you can proceed.
Okay, the roll number is 070301250052 Caffness Road. The assessed value is $1,047,000. We have an effective year built of 1969. We have construction classes, masonry, area walls. The zoning is M2. The land area is 22,485 square feet. The lease floor and the gross floor area are 10,893 square feet for a land plan of 2.06. So take a look at the property on page 8, where it's located. So it's between like Notre Dame, Sherwin, and Stevenson. It actually backs on to a creek. If you look on page 9, so you can see that it backs on to a creek there. It's got fairly low land to building ratio of 2.06. You can see the two overhead doors where they would get trucks in and out of. And then just another view on page 10, and you can see the front view of the property. So for comparable properties, we look for similar ages and square foot and single-tenanted buildings within the area. So we're on Border, King Edward, St. James, King Edward, Border, and two on Erin, which are a little further out, but they were similar square footage and age. So the net rents range from $6 all the way up to $7.84. The effective years built range from 1956 all the way up to 1975. The wall heights range from 13 up to 18 feet, and the leased areas range from 5,000 all the way up to 10,320 square feet. The lease terms range from 1 year to 10 year, and the lease starts range from 2010 up to 2017. So turning to page 4, we're applying $6.70 a square foot to this property. We have a 4% vacancy, 2% expenses, and a 6.4 capitalization rate for $1,047,000. If we turn to page, so I supplied two mailers here on page 11, just because I found them a little confusing. So the first one on page 11 is for 2017. If you look at the net operating income, they have a negative number of $429,170. And I think that might be the case because if you look at the property management, they have over, at the top there, they have over $520,000 they're applying to property management. So I think that, I can't imagine that's the property management fee, but very well could be, I don't know. So I just put in the 2016 mailer just to show on page 13 that the 2016 they have a net operating income of $90,568. So there's quite a discrepancy between the 2 years, obviously, but I just thought I would show that. Because they claim that it is not owner occupied, but it is a net income. So, anyways, that being said, we feel the value at $1,047,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes. Most of your comparables are fronting onto major streets, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The 13-foot one, King Edward, is, again, fronts King Edward. Do you think that is a better location than our subject?
The two King Edward ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree they are slightly better. Yeah.
In terms of the pictures that you supplied here, I'll make reference to the shipping doors there. Would it allow for a large truck to access it?
It would be difficult for a large truck to get in there, but I think it's
not intended for large trucks, is it?
I think that's kind of the point. Like,
yeah.
There are, when it comes to industrial properties, I know we like to have, talk a lot about the tractor trailers and semi-trailers, the longer ones that can come in and out, but there's all different types of trucks that can access buildings. So, but yes, in terms of like a large tractor trailer, yes, it would be difficult.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, Carrie, any questions?
Yeah, did you inspect this property?
Not this one.
Not this one.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. So this is again 19. So you've given this a 6.4 cap rate. So it's got an effective of 69. Do you know what that entails? Like a 2-year difference between the actual and effective?
I was wondering that myself. I found some permits for some exterior alterations to the building. There was some new siding was put on, some paint and stuff like that. And I believe that I couldn't find one for an interior one, but whether that was it, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
So,
And when was that permit taken?
that was, I believe, in I believe that was in 2014, probably. I think it was 2014, but I don't have it with me. So.
Okay. And the creek that you were talking about, is that Oman's Creek?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you know if the building has any foundation issues
That I do not know, actually.
being close to the creek?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Just because other properties have come before us
That is
with
correct.
massive
Yeah.
issues. Okay, thank you. Perhaps Mr. Navarro can speak to that. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Lynn, any questions?
I have no questions.
Do you know if this property has ever experienced any flooding issues from Olmos Creek?
I have not, and I have not seen any permits or anything. Like I did look through the permits, they said nothing about flooding issues that I noticed.
Okay.
So,
So this would be quite close to the airport, but we'll be getting an airport runoff there. All right, you can proceed, Michelle.
Okay. You can see the picture on page 2 in the overheads. I don't think we've had any mention of any flooding issues. Typically, that's something that most owners would offer up to us, so I don't think there are any issues of flooding. If we turn to page 7, we've gone with a $550 rent. We use this sample here. Again, location, wall height, all of those things factor into the rent and why we chose it. Vacancy, we've gone with the same city parameters, 4%, shortfall 375, non-recovered 7%. Capitalization rate, 7%. We went with a slightly higher capitalization rate. Again, the age factors into that. And the end value is $740,786, rounded to $741,000. I'm open for questions.
Okay, Jerry?
just one question.
Sorry. Again,
Just,
I'm thinking and not sure anymore.
you said your indices 3 and 4 for your rank of variables on page 7, and 9 to 12 they're in a completely different area. Oh, and 17, do you feel Salto Crescent, Creek Crescent, and Morey are good comparables for this property?
They're outside of the area, definitely. But there's similar type of buildings. Creek Crescent, very similar type of subdivision, industrial subdivision. So I would say that in terms of relative to that space right there, not in the same area, but probably a similar rent. That said, I tend to think that most of the rents were closer to $550 than they were to $627, $670.
Okay, those
Yeah, and so, again, what factors into this is the type of building, the location, does it have proper access? And you know, you stated that it's not built to have access for semi-trailers, and that's true. It's not built for that type of property, for that type of transport vehicle. So that said, we're saying that it's also away from those nodes that I noted. For example, King Edward Street, there in St. James. Those are much better locations with better access. So I feel that this is proper and fair in terms of the rent.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Okay, Terry?
Do you know what takes place in this building?
I don't. I did not inspect this building either.
I'm just wondering if wall height's the same, which is pretty.
13.
Oh, city.
15.
City at 15, I think. Mm-hmm.
15, correct?
15, yeah.
15. Yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Lynn?
What is tenancy type 0?
I could have put a question mark there too.
I actually have that question too. So
It means I don't know.
Oh, okay. I thought, well, maybe that means it's owner occupied, and then I saw an S, which
No.
is single tenant, and then I wondered about that.
Yeah. I believe it defaults to a 0 when we don't have a proper identifier. So it has to be identified as a single occupant, multi-tenancy, or owner occupied, but owner occupied comes in as, don't quote me on it, but I think there's at least 2 letters there when it's owner occupied.
Okay. All right, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, good pick. I didn't notice that. All right, I have no questions. Thank you. $1733 St. Matthews.
Which one, sorry?
1733 St. Matthews.
are we on Century?
Century?
Oh, sorry. I had I'm ahead of my time again. 856 Century. Sure. I was going to anyhow. That's fine. Then.
Okay.
So I was rushing this one. Okay, go ahead.
The roll number is 07002356000856 Century Street. The assessed value is $1,059,000. We have actual year and effective year of 1964. The wall height is 18 to 21 feet, and the zoning is M2. The land area is 34,511 square feet. The plan area is 10,923 square feet, and the leaseable area is 10,692 square feet for a land plan of 3.16. So take a look at the property quickly on page 8. So you can see its location right on Century Street, between Saskatchewan and Wellington Avenue. You can get a look at the front of the building lower down on page 8. Page 9 gives you an overhead and side view. You can see on the side view that it's got 3 overhead doors at the rear of the building. And page 10 just gives you kind of another front and side view of the property. turn into page 3, you can see the rent comparables. They're on Border, Stevenson, Dublin, 2 of them are in Dublin, another one's on Border, and King Edward, so they're all again within close proximity to the property. These are all multi-tenanted buildings similar to the property. They're all zoned M2 except for the 110 King Edward, which is zoned M1, and they have land to building ratios, so 1377 Border is 3.06, 4 Stevenson is 2.58, 1475 Dublin is 271, 17.7 Dublin is 272, Border is 3.06, and the King Edward, 110 King Edward is 2.24, so they're all fairly similar to the subject property. And they have their rents that range from $6.50 up to $7.30. So when we look onto page 4, we can see that the leasable areas are broken up into 3 different premises, and they range in price from. Well, let's give you the overall here. So the blended rate is $6.90. We're applying 4% vacancy or 2% expenses and a 6.4% capitalization rate. So this is a tenanted building. The mailer starts on page 11. Let's see if there's. So we do. So I believe they have it on page 14 at the bottom. They have an average base rent of $6.66. So we feel that the value should be confirmed at $1,059,000.
Questions?
I have no questions.
Any questions, Karen?
You didn't inspect this one.
No.
No questions. Thank you.
So I'm just looking at your comparables, and I see you've chosen comparables in that 3,000-4,000 square foot range. That's equivalent to your premises?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you cap rate 6.4. That's towards close to your 20th percentile.
Correct.
And why is that? Just the location and
The location and I would say square footage of the building as well. It's quite low.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You can proceed.
We can turn to page 7 of my brief. So we've gone with the rents in place. We feel that they're close enough to market. We feel that they are at market, so we didn't feel a need to adjust them in any way. 679 versus the 690 that the assessor has proposed. 4% vacancy, shortfall of 375, non-recovered expenses, again, 7%, and a capitalization rate of 7%. And the value that we are requesting is $902,871 or $903,000. The 7%, again, relates to the age of the building. Location in this case is slightly better. I'm open for questions.
Okay. So I guess, just your capitalization rate, you consider this an investment grade property at 7%?
It's fairly net of the,
And again, you make no downward adjustments for size or age or anything such as that.
In terms of size or age,
Well, I guess not age for this one, but for size, only 10,000 square feet.
no.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Terry?
I have no questions, thank you.
Lynn?
No questions.
Yeah, I have no questions, so we'll take a break until about 20 to 7, I guess.
Yeah?
Or our decision was for that number that they, whatever you want to. Okay. 1733 St. Oh, yeah, okay. No, I'm like, 1733 St. Matthews.
Okay, rule number 070022495500. The assessed value is $1,655,000. I have a recommendation for $1,570,000.
Sorry, 507?
Yeah, 1,570,000.
And what's that based on?
It's based on a net operating income of $109,855 and a capitalization rate of 7%.
That's actually 569.
What's the NOI? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, it's 569. My mistake.
Okay,
Well,
could you
what
say it
was
all
it?
again?
1,569,000.
1 million,
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I rounded up.
569.
And what was the NOI you said?
109,855.
Okay, and I think you accept that?
Yes.
Good. Short and sweet. I'll put these ones over here because we'll have to look at them anymore. 1214 border. Yeah, I can see Machado having the fear of his wife in him, but. Okay, you can proceed.
Okay, and 1214 border, the roll number is 070100000100. An assessed value of $2,248,000. I have a recommendation for $2,087,000, $88,000.
Okay, and
That was based off the NOI, right? Sorry, I didn't write that one down.
so lower NOI.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. Cap rate wasn't adjusted?
No, it was actually based on the net operating income of 146,
Right, that's
and a cap rate of 7%.
7%. That's for my mistake.
146?
146.
Even?
146,146,
And a cap rate of
Oh,
7%.
okay.
and a cap rate of 7%.
Thought you were just giving me a stutter there or something. 100 King Street East. No, what was I saying? King Street. King Street.
So, yeah, it's 070022442200, 100 King Edward Street East. We have an assessed value of $2,043,000. And I have a recommendation for $1,882,000. That's based on a net operating income of $143,017 and a 7.25.
Okay, and I take it you accept?
Yes.
Thank you. $135 Midland.
Actually, can we go over that number again from the previous one?
Did I get that wrong?
One of us got it wrong. It was 1,882,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
1,082,882.
No, 882.
882. in
That
the right
math
number.
works.
Nope. I
It's
agree.
not working, no. Doesn't work.
On the 7 and 11.
One second here.
I might be 135504.
Oh, yeah, that's,
What did we do here?
It's actually 141, 165 divided by 7.0, 7.50.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I was.
What did you say,
7
1?
141, 165. So my net operating income divided by 0.0750. So the capitalization rate is 750.
Yeah, that's what
All
it
right.
is. There it is.
Okay.
The math works?
That math works.
I just have a question on that then. So this is a 1964 property with a 7.5% cap rate. Is that based on the condition of the property? Is there something exceptional to it?
Actually, yeah, this is a very good property. This fronts Denison. It has some very strong tenants in it with 10 years and I believe 7-year leases involved in it. It's been renovated quite a few times. It has a gym in it. This is actually a fairly good property.
Yeah. So. I've actually been through this entire property.
Okay.
So the outside looks nice. It's been painted. But the inside is not that great.
I like the gym.
So, but you're agreeing to the 7.
I agree to that. Yeah, we agree to the value.
Sorry.
135 Midland.
Oh, sorry, right, yeah, Midland.
135 Midland.
Okay. The roll number is 13003120500. The value is $750,000. We have a recommendation for $660,000. That would be using $41,272 for the NOI and a 6.25 capitalization.
Okay, and you are additions with that. All right, and the last property, back to Border Street, 1368 Border.
1368 Border Street, roll number 0701012600. The assessed value is $540,000. We have a recommendation for $482,000. That's using the NOI of $31,331 and a 6.50 cap rate.
Okay, and you're in agreement?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, what was the NOI again?
The NOI was the city, the assessor's NOI at $31,331.
All right. Well, I guess that concludes today's seminar. It's good to let people talk. So, thank you very much for your presentations, and we'll get back to you on the remaining properties.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just figured